I'm Mark Seifter.
And I'm Linda Zeiss Palmer.
And this is Arcane Mark.
Welcome, everybody, to Linda's Adventure Skull and Shackles part. We're at 9. We're actually all the way up to 9. We've talked about a lot of stuff.
And we've finished the end, pretty much, of book 4.
Mm-hmm. Which means that we're going to be rolling into the adventures that the PCs face during book 5. Now, during a lot of other books, there were a lot of side adventures. I put in Plunder and Peril and a bunch of the Legendary Games adventures and things like this. We're almost at the point where I was just running what was in the book with some modifications rather than adding in large side adventures. But there will still be some of those.
Still one large side adventure.
There is still one large side adventure.
We had Chekhov's necklace from Absent Father figure going on with Ty.
Yeah, that will pay off later in this part. But before we get into what happened there, let's give a quick overview of the PCs.
That's right.
There is the Tall Tale Telling Tethys.
Tall Tale Telling Tiefling Tethys.
Tall Tale Telling Tiefling Tethys. Who is a size medium.
The world's only heroed medium.
With a career as a false medium before she became one of the most influential members of this pirate crew. And my other GMPC is the walking artillery and bringer of storms, hydro/aero kineticist Aram Wetfoot.
Probably close to becoming the second most famous storm-creating pirate in the Shackles after the Master of Gals.
Yes. And how about your PCs and their
we have
friends?
Captain Rin, Mirani Ilium, or who goes by Captain Rin, a swashbuckler who is absolutely zealously devoted to Besmara and the idea that we have to amuse Besmara by doing wild, adventurous antics so that Besmara will give us treasure instead of sinking us with sea serpents because she's bored now. And her brother Hector, the shaman of the waves, who is the more level-headed, somewhat skeptical of the two, and does not know that his wave spirit is actually Besmara, who started out as a wave spirit before she stole her godhood, as a pirate should. As well as both of them have familiars. Rin, the swashbuckler, has Ferusa, the coral capuchin familiar, who likes to steal things. And Hector has Pontus, emissary of the sea, a tidepole dragon familiar who likes to hoard things. And also is very, very full of himself and his connection to the sea. But actually does try to, do things. Just people always razz him for demanding tribute on behalf of the sea. And then finally, Mr. Ty. Her name is Antiope, but she thinks that sounds way too, fancy.
And froofy. So she goes by Mr. Ty.
By Ty, or Mr. Ty, the Master Gunner. And she just wants to beat things up. Really, and learn every combat style that could possibly be learned. She's a brawler, and interesting fights, challenging fights, but maybe ones where she doesn't get knocked unconscious immediately by some weird monster or grapple despite her nearly 60 CMD against grapple.
I don't know how I managed to grapple her so often.
I'll tell you how. It's because the math of CMB and CMD is the same reason in the Iron Fight game we're playing that the Constrictor Snake Animal Companion has never failed to grapple anything.
Yeah.
And usually succeeds while taking a -20 to not also gain the grab condition.
That is true.
It's because the math of CMB and CMD are so far off that even the fact that Ty has an additional plus 12 that she probably shouldn't have because of favorite class bonus. It's still not enough.
Oh, well. Well, at any rate, that is our group.
Yes.
And what they just finished up was they held a feast to celebrate having their new island. And
we tried to just hold a nice feast, and it was just being sabotaged.
And they were during their attempt at just having a nice peaceful feast. They had a sneaky assassin known as the Eel who tried to infiltrate, poison people, cause a werewolf to go berserk, explode the ships of the visiting pirate captains.
This Eel is apparently a very famous saboteur.
A variety of other things.
Had a lot of plans, but somehow running around like, I don't even know, a chicken with his head cut off, Hector managed behind the scenes to talk to just the right people at just the right time and have just the right contingencies to mess up every single one of the Eel's plans before much could happen. I mean, the werewolf did start going out of control. But that was, I think, the only main thing that even got to that point in the Eel's plan, just because we always lucked across whatever the next thing was sooner, except for the fact that the Eel's getaway, we were just totally prepared for it because we had a friendly octopus in that bay. Or cove, or atoll, or whatever it was.
I don't remember. It's a bay in my mind, but...
maybe it's a bay.
Yeah. But yeah, so they had just resolved that, and they had all been recognized as, pirate lords. Every single one of the PCs.
So that is the thing that hadn't quite happened, or is about to happen, was that the PCs were very surprised because they knew that Rin was under contention for Pirate Lord, but what happened was a little bit of dirty politics in the Shackles, because we pretended that we'd never talked to Tessa Fairwind, and when we mentioned this, like, all the way back in the episode where we're talking about Book 3, where we went to look for a spy on behalf of Tessa Fairwind, but we never told Aranax and Endymion that, and we never told the Pirate Council that. It was just, we had Endymion report back that we were just trustworthy people. So Tessa's faction tried to make all of us on the council to just basically pack the council with more votes that would back her. But the anti-Tessa people did not know that we were friends of Tessa, so they also backed adding us onto it. Some people thought that people who were friends with Aranax and Endymion, who is like a neutral evil Chelish ex-Marine, would probably not be friends of chaotic, neutral/good Desna worshipping Tessa Fairwind.
Yes.
And so they backed us, and so they managed to get a majority who all wanted to pack the council with our party.
Yes.
And most of the party members were, maybe they were surprised, but like, oh yeah, that's great.
I mean, Tethys was certainly happy to take that role. Aram was like, wait, oh, okay, well, that could be useful in case the Red Mantis ever come after me again, I guess.
And Hector legitimately almost said no. Like, he thought about it for a really long time, and he warned everyone that, like, he might not necessarily just vote in a block with the rest of the party. But he ultimately, Hector doesn't really see himself as a pirate. Like, he's on a pirate ship, yes. He's protecting his sister, who he knew was going to be a pirate lord, sure. But he doesn't, like, see himself as a pirate, but he had to accept that despite the fact that he was a pirate lord, but he figured he might as well have his opinion known in the Council of the Pirate Lords, because maybe it would provide wisdom if it was the deciding vote ever.
See, now I'm picturing the chibi Hector with like a speech bubble over his head, is like, guys, I'm not so sure I'm a pirate. And then there's like the blinking arrow that says Pirate Lord. Pirate Lord.
Yep. That was actually an interesting role-playing moment for Hector. Ty was definitely happy about that, because she very much enjoys any kind of signifier for her strength. And she wasn't going to try to, like, be captain of our entire fleet over Rin. Rin was obviously the one who wanted to do that. She doesn't really want to lead or inspire people in that way, although she does have a trait where she likes calling out for battle to people. That she likes that. But being determined to be a pirate lord as a symbol of her strength and influence, she was totally good with that. So it was really only Hector who seriously wondered about it, even though Aaron was like, me? Who, me? Oh, okay. So yeah, we all became pirate lords, which vastly skewed the way voting could work. But it still wasn't quite enough, because there were there wasn't really just a Tessa and anti-Tessa. There were factions upon factions. Like, there's 3 ex-Tien pirate captains, and 2 of them hate each other and will always vote against each other on anything, even just to spite themselves. Even if there was a vote that was like, let's give all the Tien captains extra money, one of them would vote against it.
There's Sornash, the bloodthirsty werewolf.
Yep.
There is Endymion, who we already mentioned.
Sornash liked us.
Yeah.
And Endymion liked us. That was the other thing, because the bloodthirsty werewolf liked us because we also completely saved his face from anything that could have happened there.
There's Cerise Bloodmorn, who liked you guys because you managed to beat her in a duel.
She eventually did. She was miffed because she was Tessa's initially. Former protege, and she thought that Rin, and she's also a duelist who was very similar to Rin, but thought that Rin was an upstart. But then Rin beat her in a duel,
and then she respected Rin more after that.
That's right.
Delamona Burry from Lillywhite, who you guys had done an adventure in Lillywhite where you resolved a lot of problems, so you'd earned her respect there. And there were a variety of
She
other
liked
folks.
us other than the fact that we held our enemies captive because we refused to kill them, and she doesn't like capturing people. The Master of Gales thought we were pretty impressive when we brought back the legendary Hirgonzos to the party. There was what's his name, the sea elf who was also at our main party.
Mace Darmar.
Mace Darmar.
Yeah,
that's right. There he is, Mace Darmar.
And of course, and numerous other people, and of course, Bonefist himself.
Yeah, that's right. Was there someone from Besmara's throne?
I think I added someone from Besmara's
throne. Or no, maybe there's not a pirate lord.
There's not a pirate lord there.
Just
normally,
they have the high priestess of Besmara.
I think I added some more of that influence in there, but
you added more from that weren't in the strong pirate lords, but that were in the back matter.
Yeah. So the PCs were called to a meeting of pirate lords with their new status, and the first order of business was one that the PCs were obviously all going to agree upon, which was should the PCs get less share of the wealth because they're newbies?
That's right.
And Tessa was like, yeah, these guys are awesome. They should get more of the share. And Kerdrak Bonefist, the Hurricane King, thought that the PCs should not get more of a share, that they should have to go through the same process of everyone else. But the problem with having a voting council that is somewhat split but slightly tilted toward the no is that when you add in the 5 votes of the PCs saying yes, we should definitely get ourselves more money, then
but we didn't want it to be untoward.
Yeah.
So we made sure Tessa did not nominate it, even though she was the main person in it, because she was a polarizing figure.
Yeah.
We had some person that people wouldn't really object to, who was on our side, be the one who brought it up, and then we convinced so many people to switch from no to yes that we could just abstain, because we were like, we're obviously biased and we're 5 new people. Yeah. We want you to know that we're not going to just throw things off in our own favor like this.
That's right.
And you should be comfortable.
I did remember you breaking the vote that way. And that's
so we could have done that.
Yes.
But we actually just convinced 5 additional people or 4 or however many to flip their votes. And then we abstained because that was unfair.
Oh, that's right. From an adventure design perspective, it clearly expects that there will be 4 PCs who vote aye, because that's exactly enough to break the tie. But yeah. So then you also had another vote to should we use Sargavin tithes to make giant statues of the Hurricane King everywhere, because the Hurricane King is awesome and that's how we should spend our money.
And so, we got them to amend that to making defenses against Chalish naval invasions that were themed with the symbol of the Hurricane King, that were like the Hurricane Walls or something like that.
Yeah. And
in honor of the Hurricane King's obvious strength of helping protect us from Chalish invasions, but he still didn't want to do that because A, he wanted his giant statues, and B, he did not believe
that the Chalish invasions.
The Hurricane King was perhaps the only person in the entire council, it may be some of his loyalists, although I think some of them did believe, but just wanted to back him anyway, who did not believe that there was going to be a Chalice invasion, to the point that it made Rin, who previously, like, even though he's a jerk and not that effective, and she's upset that he's not that effective, but was like, he is the Hurricane King. Yeah. But she started wondering if he's in the pocket of Cheliax, because it's so much denialism, you'd almost have to have been paid off. Plus, like, the name of the Hurricane King in their list of who could be bribed did not have a dash. It had a very high amount of money.
Yes, but it was not a dash.
It did not have a dash.
Yes.
Whereas Endymion had a dash. So she started getting worried about the fact that maybe he had been actually bought off by Cheliax at this point. We still don't actually know, and I have not been spoiled on this AP, so I don't know if he was bought off by Cheliax, but we did eventually get people to agree to make the defenses instead.
Because people weren't going to agree to not do anything with that money that honored the Hurricane King, but they were willing to agree to honor the Hurricane King in a way that may not have been the Hurricane King's absolute favorite, but that still...
By building defenses, and that was how we convinced even some of his own people to do it. Building defenses, building up fleets, and just being prepared for Cheliax. What was the next one?
The next one was, there were a lot of strange tales being told of an Isle of the Black Tower with a magical sword inside of it. And one of the pirate lords claimed that he should have salvage rights over it because that tower was closest to his island, that should be 100% for him to be able to salvage. And that any plunder that anyone else managed to get from that area would have to pay a tithe to him.
So if I remember correctly, there were also pirates who were upset that they didn't get...
There were pirates who had tried similar gambits in past years and not been accepted, and so they were like, well, I didn't get that kind of arrangement last time, so clearly that's not a thing that we do.
Mm-hmm. So, we managed to figure out that particular area was, potentially involved with Captain Harrigan.
Mm-hmm.
So we tried to change the vote from being specifically a salvage of Sornash or not into a situation where it was, but if someone had a pre-established claim on it from I think that we weren't sure if it was involving Harrigan. Yeah. So I was like, if Harrigan was there, then our pre-established claim to have to go after Harrigan, because he had apparently also betrayed people to Cheliax and demons and all these other things, would mean that we don't pay the claim. But if he wasn't there, then Sornash had the claim as second priority.
Yes.
Which then immediately forced us into a vote on the next topic before we could finish the vote on that topic.
Which is the declaration of Skaggs Rodgam as outlaw. Harrigan had tried to have an issue brought to the table that his former first mate should be declared an outlaw for engaging in unsanctioned piracy. And so that came up, and it's like, well, you're talking about having the specific goal to go after Harrigan, so let's talk about this now, because there's another issue that was brought forth about Harrigan's crew. So if you're going to be saying that Harrigan himself is an outlaw that we're going after, then we're going to say forget it about any petitions that he submitted to the council.
Mm-hmm. So we basically denied his thing that he sneaked into the council.
Mm-hmm.
And then declared Harrigan to be an outlaw to Cheliax instead, which was combined with Sornash's claim, so that if Harrigan was involved, then we were sent that we were supposed to investigate on behalf of the Pirate Council. We also basically tied in the fact that Harrigan was the one who hired the eel, who poisoned Sornash.
Yeah.
So, like, we were doing it for Sornash unless he wants to be the one to attack Harrigan, which we think we have a pre-established claim, but, like, he's also been in the council for longer. he did not want to take Harrigan
because
head on.
he knows the reputation of Harrigan, and he would rather.
But we were like, we'd never, deny Avanar Sornash the chance to go after Harrigan. But if he doesn't, we'll do it. We're not going to give the salvage rights.
And he graciously conceded that since you guys had started by mutinying against Harrigan, that you had called.
And we'll take revenge on his behalf in exchange for not paying the salvage rights. But anyone else who goes there does have to pay.
He was basically like, you can have that claim as long as you don't have mercy on him.
And then Tessa or somebody was going to bring up the chalice preparations, but we had sneaked them into replacing the Hurricane King statues with the chalice investigations and protections. So that made it sort of a fait accompli.
Mm-hmm.
So we basically got everything to go the way that we wanted to, while also not getting anybody angry with us, except for maybe whoever Harrigan's stooge was, who
Hard Luck Messi.
Wait, no, right, he didn't.
But he
was just bribed. He didn't care.
He was bribed. Yeah, he didn't have like a. He also like backed the heck off once he saw that there was all this momentum against Harrigan. He's like, I don't want to be associated with the sinking ship.
He was just like, he paid me for this. It seemed legit.
Yeah, it's like, I've got his money.
So, other than the Hurricane King himself, who we probably somewhat pissed off because we didn't get his statues, and he was already just angry and moody the entire time.
Yeah.
We didn't actually anger the other people that we got things to go against, which was good. But there's one character who had maybe his greatest moment at this Pirate Council meeting. At every Pirate Council, there are chairs for the pirates. There's also one that's, I think, under, like, this depiction of Besmara on the wall. That's, like, the chair that's left for Besmara. And nobody sits in the chair or goes in the chair. It's always empty, and she could presumably give a sign based on that chair of her pleasure or favor or disfavor. So, during the meeting, because he is an emissary of the sea...
There was a little sparkling shininess that happened on that chair.
And Pontus thought that the sparkling shininess was a sign for him to go to the chair. So he flew over and kind of landed somewhat on the chair, and all the pirates looked at it, and some of them were, like, frowning a bit.
And Hector's just like,
like, what is he doing?
Crap.
This is the Besmara chair. This is gonna... And then Besmara spoke through Pontus, but in a voice that sounded like Pontus's voice, and said what she thought about the Chalice invasion or during one of the topics.
Yeah.
And so, first of all, some of the pirates thought that maybe that was a sign from Besmara.
Besmara does sometimes speak through sea creatures and the behavior of sea creatures, after all.
But it did just sound like Pontus, because she made it sound like Pontus. And Hector did not think that. And Pontus was like, no, I didn't make it up. It came through. It was actually from the sea. And Hector's like, you're just saying that because you want people to give you more tribute. No! So it was the dragon who cried wolf.
Yes.
A little bit there, because or at least not no one, but Hector wouldn't.
Hector did not.
Tethys at least always claims to believe Pontus and promulgates all of Pontus's claims in exchange for a cut of the tribute that was sent to Pontus.
Arcane Mark, I challenge you to a duel. What kind of duel are you challenging us to?
I don't know. Could be anything. Aha! It is an emoji duel. Then we'll have to fight back in the emoji duel with.
No, not the broken one.
A magic wand.
Don't use the broken one. We'll lose.
Aha! Dual wield.
Yaha! There we go.
So, Pontus spoke for Besmara at the meeting, and not that many people believed him. At least Tethys always lies and says she supports Pontus. Maybe she does somewhat. I don't know to what extent she actually thinks that Pontus has some legitimacy, or to what extent she's just very amused by it and wants to be part of the racket and likes tall tales, so we'll always just do it anyway.
She won't ever admit to the extent to which she'll give different answers on different days, right? She's the
main one who encourages him while Hector's trying to get him to stop. She
encourages him to keep going, and like sometimes she pays him tribute to suggest that he continue to do that.
In front of a lot of other crew members.
In front of a lot of other crew members, and makes a big deal and like spreads legends about Pontus.
She claims that good things happen to her after she gives tribute to Pontus.
Yes.
As well, because she also gets a cut of the other people who give.
That's correct.
Tribute to Pontus.
They have a racket where she gets a percentage of the tribute that Pontus gets as a result of her her bolstering his name.
That's right. So, yeah, that was a really very interesting pirate politics.
Mm-hmm.
And it went about, I think, as well as it could have gone for us, considering things. And so at that point, they said that we all agreed that we were going to build fleets, and they told us we should start building a fleet. But fortunately, we had never sold a single ship that we had captured, and we were already building a fleet.
Mm-hmm.
So we already had a fleet. Yes.
So you didn't have to do the whole like start building a fleet type thing. You were able to you were able to continue. You were generally still working on trying to recruit more allies, but again, this is the type of thing that you guys have been doing since the very beginning, is trying to find and recruit allies.
And also some of these ally recruitment things we haven't done yet because we prioritize Harrigan.
Yeah, this part.
Since we thought we were a little ahead, we were going to do that next. But we decided to go after the first mate that Harrigan wanted to kill right away, because the fact that he wanted a bounty means that the first mate must be dangerous to Harrigan in some way. And so that meant that we were going to try to find him anyway, even though no bounty was placed on his head.
Yeah, it didn't matter that there was no bounty. You wanted to go after him.
Yeah.
And then there was also this.
Also, because Harrigan had a secret base somewhere, we knew that from the fact that he was going to rendezvous with Plug and then show Plug how to get there, and that never happened, and we didn't know where it was. And the first mate probably did, like the real first mate of Harrigan, not Plug.
Yeah, let's see. You guys didn't deal with that one yet. So going down to here, going after.
So we tried to find the first mate.
Yes.
So that we could get the first mate, who was Skaggs.
Skaggs Ruckram.
Not Scab, Skaggs.
Skaggs Ruckram.
Yeah, okay.
And Skaggs was missing, as you discovered.
But we had some clues about where Skaggs might have gone after we gathered some information.
Yeah, you found rumors that he had tried to do something called shoot the gullet, which was sailing through a dangerous formation of shoals called Dagon's Gullet.
Dun dun dun. As a desperate escape attempt.
Yes.
But the problem was you usually did not make it through the gullet, because you could get caught by the jaws.
Yeah. So there was like rumors that he had done that to run away. There were rumors that he was dead, but at the very least, they were going to go investigate this extremely dangerous location. They trusted their own ship. Yes, the Demon Lord Dagon.
The Demon Lord Dagon. That's right.
Demon Lord of the Deep.
Who we were afraid that it was possible Harrigan had devoted himself to based on his heart-eating shenanigans.
Yes. So Dagon's jaws were some rocky isles that were pretty close to Motaku Isle that most people generally tried to stay away from. They were these rocky. They're rocky. There's all sorts of rocks underneath. There were tall rocky spires that were coming up.
They're rocks, just in general.
Yeah. Just in general, yeah. Hidden reefs is pretty much a mess.
It had both a big jaw and a little jaw. You would almost think if you were playing an adventure card game, you'd have to set up 2 locations, one of which had a little bit more cards than the other.
Yes, exactly. And because that wasn't dangerous enough, the waters were infested with Vrikolakuses.
Vrikolakus.
Yes.
Those things that turn into dolphins and then evil vampire-ish things.
Yes. Dangerous undead sea creatures.
Yes.
But at the much higher CR band than Lacedons.
Yes, definitely. But similar situation.
But speaking of Lacedons, those who are slain by them also rise as Lacedons. So there were also Lacedons.
You've got Lacedons and Vrikolakuses. I always want to say like too many alaks, so like Vrikolakalak.
No, Luka, Laka, Lika. Yes.
So, yeah. We decided we were going to go there anyway. Also, we didn't exactly know that there were a lot of Ricolocuses on the island at first.
Yeah, so they went ahead and landed on the island. They didn't necessarily want to stay in those waters for too long.
And we saw some dolphins and some corpses on the shore. But guess what? The dolphins were Ricolocuses and the corpses were all Lacedons, and they all attacked us.
So
Is that right? Is that the first encounter? I remember that because I remember we saw. It was like, those bodies might have been from his crew.
Those bodies might have been from his crew.
Why are there dolphins? Is that those things we fought before again? And then it was.
And then it totally was, and everything attacked you. It was like, welcome to Dagon's Jaws. I guess this is what I should have expected with a name like Dagon's Jaws.
That's right. And there were a lot. And then after we defeated them, we saw in the distance there were dozens, like almost 100 in total of like Lacedons, and it was basically like a zombie invasion, except for everything here was stronger than a zombie.
Yes.
And so we escaped to the high ground, basically, so before they couldn't have
more of them coming out of the water.
Yep. And turns out the high ground is also the place where the survivors escaped to, because there was some kind of like magical
sacred spring
that had like a monitor there or something. Was there a monitor keeping it sacred?
I think
like a magical
there was like a blessed symbol of Pharasma there, and there's like Pharasma blessed water, and I think I may have added a monitor to this because there was
some kind of a psychopomp or something, or some kind of creature that was watching over it.
Here it is, the Colia Root Inevitable.
Oh, it was an Inevitable. Yeah, I thought it was Bust of Pharasma, but then it also had a Lawful Neutral monitor.
That was in a slightly different place, but yeah.
But I couldn't remember for sure, because I was like, wait, Pharasma's not Lawful Neutral, maybe?
There were two things. There was the spring that was Blessed of Pharasma, which is the first thing that you guys found. And those allowed you to anoint your weapons with water that made them undead bait, which is very useful because the island was full of
very useful
undead, and the water was healing as well when you drank.
But then there was also some kind of thing where there was a protective field against the undead from the Inevitable, and like the survivors of
survivors of Skag's crew were up there, and there was also, the Lacorian Chris, the Colia Root Inevitable, who was bound to protect the area, and to guard the Dusk Watchers.
That's right. So this is where we found Alice and Chris, right?
Yeah, this is where you found Alice Grogblood.
Or maybe Elise, I don't know, but I think we called them Alice and Chris.
Yeah. Who, she, as you might expect, was not a fan of Harrigan, because she had been part of the crew
of the mutinying...
She had joined the mutinying crews.
Yeah, the mutinying first mate. She was definitely not a fan of Harrigan, and she had the information that the first mate, who did die on this island, would have had about Harrigan's secret base.
She's like, okay, here's the files that he had. I know where the files he had are. They're in a watertight chest on our ship, which got wrecked, and now those Bricolocuses are totally guarding the area, and we can't get back to it.
That's right.
She definitely, her first inclination was to fight you guys, because she assumed you were Harrigan-sent assassins, but you were able to clear that up.
I think that the fact that we mutinied against Harrigan had been famous enough, and that Harrigan kind of constantly was muttering about like ripping us into pieces.
Yeah, well,
that
it didn't take
that
long.
when we said who we were, she was like, "Oh yeah, you. There's no way Harrigan sent you.
Yeah.
He hates you more than us."
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's why I said like you were able to convince her pretty easily, because her initial reaction is to be like, "Oh my gosh, you're those people. Oh yay, here, let me tell you everything I know." So you didn't have to fight her in her springing, attacking combat style or her...
So what was Chris's actual, like, contract? Because I feel like we convinced Chris that Chris should do something else.
Yeah, because the Dust Watchers that he was supposed to watch over are these, like, mysterious Golgani wooden heads that were in this area. And it was supposed to attack anyone who got too close to them. It didn't know very much about what the undead who were surrounding them. It did know that there were pirates who were about, And it had forgotten a lot of the things about like the people who had initially put it there. But they did. But you were able to, like, if you talk to them about things, figure out that to free them from their duty, they would need to the PCs would need to anoint the brows of the 6 wooden heads with water from the sacred spring to bless them.
Mm-hmm. And I think that we were able to basically get a reward from the Inevitable for that.
Well, because the Inevitable had to stay there until, like, the keepers of the island released them by doing this ritual, and the Inevitable was able to justify that with the undead here and all of the original slain, that the PCs
originals were slain.
Did that.
We called the Inevitable.
Yeah.
The entire empire was gone.
Yeah.
And the only people we knew who ruled the Golgani Island.
Yes.
Was us.
That's how you did it.
Not this island, but another one that was strongly connected to the culture of the people who made this island.
Yeah.
So.
I knew I was missing something.
Thanks to some flim flam from Tethys, we met and her medium abilities to connect with beings from the beyond in a certain way, we were able to convince the Inevitable about that.
Yeah, and LaCoria and Chris had a thank you gift sent to the Island of Empty Eyes to meet you there.
That's right. Good old Chris.
Which included a special scroll of Summon Monster 8 that could be used to summon Chris specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Once Chris was dismissed, then the Sacred Spring lost its magical properties as well.
That dismissed the binding,
yes.
But Chris did not have a actual way to get back to the plane because it was not part of summoning.
Just like we had determined in our Council of Thieves game, if you're a Coley Root Inevitable, you don't really have a way to get home. Like when we had a Coley Root Inevitable who decided to stay around and work for the PCs in order to earn money to properly and lawfully pay the Church of Abadar enough money to plane shift him home.
That's right. So this Inevitable also decided to earn some money from us for passage on our ship to leave the island and try to get somewhere where they could be sent back to Axis.
Well, I figure that if Abadar's got this whole thing about, like, always paying fair prices, it makes sense for Inevitables to be like, no, I'm not going to ask you to perform a service for me without due compensation.
That's right.
Nor will I give you a benefit without due compensation. Yeah.
We explained to Chris that we were the rulers of that Golgani Island, but that there were just a lot of people who trespass on the sea that is around there, and is not. We do not consider that legal to do without paying us tariffs, which nobody does. So we have to seize all of their goods.
Yes.
And ship to deter people from unlawfully just, trying to merchant ship through the sea without paying us tariffs.
Yes, naturally.
It's important to pay tariffs.
If, in case it wasn't already clear, there were some pretty high bluff and diplomacy scores on this team.
Also, it really is true that the Shackles is owned by those pirates. Like,
it is true.
Honestly, I don't understand why anyone tries to use the shipping lane that goes through the Shackles in Golarion.
Yeah.
That's, like, it makes sense that there's, like, a lich who wants to destroy everything, and there's a giant storm. It's like, okay, there's a stone that turns you into a god. That all makes sense. But having a country full of, like, hundreds, if not thousands, of pirate ships, and then having enough merchants who decide, let's go through the country full of pirates, there's enough loot to sustain the pirates, is just like, I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, like I've said in other things, I assume that most pirates have to go farther afield a lot of the time, but you guys have managed to sustain
Wither King says it's like the Spanish during, like, the colonial era.
Well, maybe the thing is that the vast majority of ships that sail through there still do make it through there, because pirate ships can only be in so many places at once, but then, like, Besmara sometimes is just like...
Yeah, but how many ships must that be? If the ones that do get caught are enough to sustain that many pirates.
How does the economy work when magic items are so expensive?
I don't know.
How do adventurers not just completely crash everything out?
Yeah, but adventurers are supposedly, like the PCs are supposedly very special.
Mm-hmm.
But these pirates are, like, the backbone of the entire country of the Shackles.
Yeah. Well, I assume that they have to do a lot of sailing up into Chelish waters and other places, and sailing down south. Sailing down south as well.
Yeah, maybe they are pirating, like, the parts of Garund that are off the map. And we just don't know. But there's a country that's there off the map that's like, this economy has been wrecked because the pirates are constantly pirating them or something like that.
Well, whatever we may know about what's farther south in Garund, we can't really talk too much about that, because
That's true. But the good the good thing is...
And I also didn't have that information at the time I was running this, so...
But the good thing is that this Inevitable was convinced by our claims that because the Shackles is lawfully a pirate polity, we get to decide what the tariffs are, even if that tariff is all of your goods.
That is true.
So,
with that taken care of, the PCs were indeed able to go after the Bricolacus's stronghold.
That's right.
Which was the wreck of the Devilish Duchess.
Because the only ways to get there were either through the area that Inevitable was blocking people from going to, or an incredibly underwater, horrible, hidden thing that we couldn't find that was guarded by a million, like, all the Ricolacuses and Lacedons. That second one didn't sound good, especially the part about that we couldn't find.
Yeah.
So, we were able to get in there, and we found their base, and then all their base are belonged to us.
That is true.
As we defeated them and cleansed the island of the Bricolacus threat, and we decided to take Alice with us.
Yeah.
And Chris.
Alice was certainly happy to work with you guys, because she considered you to be her best shot at surviving Harrigan's wrath, and also wanted Harrigan to pay for what he'd done.
Because Harrigan was going to come after her no matter what, so she might as well be with someone else who Harrigan was going to come after no matter what.
I might as well be with the most powerful people that Harrigan hates, who I know aren't going to betray me to Harrigan.
Yep. And so, like, we still have Chris for a little while, even where we currently are in the campaign, but not for much longer, probably, because Chris doesn't owe us that much.
That's true. That's true.
So after that, we got information about where Harrigan's base actually was.
Yes.
And it was an even more outlandish place that he had taken that was, like, in the shadow of this horrible Quilipoth tower.
Yeah.
Truly.
Yes.
It was a giant fort, and there was also a nearby Quilipoth tower that was legendarily horrible, and a legendary, like, pirate lord, powerful servant of Norgorber had, like, gone there to deal with the Quilipoth tower, and so it's a little less Quilipothy now.
Yeah.
But no one knows why or what happened.
But he figured that was a good place to set up his base, because, I mean, you might as well set up your base next to the place where no one dares to tread, because people aren't going to come looking there.
People are happy that Quilipoths aren't coming out of the tower anymore, but they definitely aren't going to go into the Quilipoth tower.
Yes.
And he didn't go into that Quilipoth tower either, but he set his fort nearby. And it was a Dagon-y Quilipoth tower, so he didn't mind about that because he could research it and he was already doing Dagon stuff.
And he was hoping that, maybe the Dagon Quilipoths wouldn't attack him as much because he was serving Dagon also.
Yep. And so, probably the point where we found out about this place, which apparently Alice and the other First Mate had gone to it before. And so they knew a little bit about what was waiting for us there. There was a giant fortified fort. There was a basement area that was being staffed by this, like, really evil cult of Norgorber that he had recruited.
Mm-hmm.
Then above the main fort, where he also had like a bunch of trolls now,
Yeah,
like,
he did.
really trained pirate trolls, there was an upper fort where all of his most powerful people were.
So those people from back in the beginning of the campaign, like Riaris Kryn, who had not, but you didn't rescue her, I don't think. At that point,
we did not rescue Riaris, Kryn, or the Stitchman. Those were the ones that Peppery told us that we wouldn't be able to rescue.
Yeah.
And so they were still around.
And he still had a variety of other folks who were with him.
He had a lot of new people we didn't know about that she told us about.
Adelita Dolarusso, who was
a powerful fighter mage type
yeah,
person.
a powerful magic user person.
And then like a Tengu who hated humans, and
yeah, a lot of people were there.
Just a whole bunch of people and cults of
I wound up shifting this part up a little bit and combining in some of the pieces from other sections so that there would be more of like a, especially because the PCs had gathered a fair number of people who may have been still assumed to be with Harrigan at this point. So Harrigan needed some other reinforcements.
And he also had a huge amount of artillery.
Yes,
if we actually just sailed our ship to try to get to where he docks his ship. I think there was like a protective reef that was also a problem for getting closer with a large ship. And a huge number of guard patrols.
There were the Scrags that were patrolling all over the place.
But what we did figure out was that if we went in through the secret basement entrance that the Cult of Norgorber was blocking, that we could take a small boat, come in, go from below where no one could see us, and try to infiltrate.
Oh yeah, do you remember Mr. Clack, the giant Eurypterid?
Yes. I don't think I remembered his name was Mr. Clack.
Yeah, but there was a giant spiny Eurypterid.
There was absolutely a giant Eurypterid down there. So we came up with our plan, which is coming through the basement. Now, to tantalize for the next Skull Shackles episode, there was something that was both very good and very bad about this. Mm-hmm. The good news and the bad news were the same news, which is that these cultists of Norgorber had put up an unhallow effect in their basement, keyed to them, so that anyone except them was completely covered by silence. Now, only Hector out of our whole party actually casts spells with verbal components, so there's that. But Hector was just pretty much screwed over, which we didn't find out until we entered. But our sneaking was very sneaky.
Yes.
And beyond that, also, they were able to speak, but since the silence carried on everywhere else, like, it let them cast their spells, but also, like, when they said something, it wouldn't go past, like, them, basically. So they couldn't raise an alarm, even if they wanted to, which they probably didn't, because they're Norgorberite and they like secrets. So nobody knew that, except Linda. So we had both a big sneaking advantage and also a big disadvantage, and we're about to go into there. We can start that one at the next episode.
Sounds good. So why don't we go ahead and say goodbye to YouTube and then figure out what our poll says we'll be doing.
All right, bye.
Bye.